Bonjour.
Hello everyone, Pantoufleee here today for a new video in which we're gonna talk a little bit about leaks. I received some screenshots thanks to some of my subscribers. I don't want to give names in order for them not to be in trouble. I don't know if they can be in trouble for leaking these kind of informations. So just in case, I'm not gonna reveal name, but you will recognize yourself in this video, and I wanna thank you a lot. So, the subject of this video, really simple. We're going to talk about two things. First thing first, I'm going to highlight to you the upcoming tech tree of British light tanks. I'm going to show you pretty much every modules, how much it's going to cost, etc, etc. So you have an idea of how many experience you need to gather in order to unlock the tier 10, the Vickers light. And simply judging by the look of these screenshots, it seems like the Vickers Light is one of the hardest tanks to unlock in terms of experience. Just look at that, 275,000 experience for the tier 10, 170,000 for the tier 9, and 100,000 for the tier 8. So these tanks are actually quite expensive, but you're gonna understand why when we are gonna go further and check how many modules you have to unlock. Because most of the time when tier 8, tier 9s, tier 10s, etc. are really hard to get from the tank to the other, not talking about modules, I mean the number of experience you need to unlock the tank from tier 8 to tier 9, not regarding modules. If it's quite cheap, it means that you will have a lot of modules to unlock. And if it's expensive, it means that you don't have that much modules to gather, which is an amazing news because it means that probably you're gonna have to play these tanks not a lot in order for them to be full, and we all know it's better to play a fully upgraded tank than a stock version of it. So yeah, overall, that's the first thing we can highlight. Also, maybe, as I told you, it starts from the Comet. You have the choice between going to the Centurion one or the FV201. And of course, if you want my opinion, you should definitely go for the Vickers Light because in my the AV4202 is a little bit outdated in the current meta of the game. So yeah, overall that's the first screen. So as I told you, extremely good news here. Nearly everything is gonna be unlocked for you if you manage to reach every tanks of the British tech tree, because as you can see on this screenshot that is coming from the same guy that just sent me the screenshot before, and he had already unlocked pretty much every single tier 10 tanks except the AV405 for the British tech tree. But you already have the how is it called, the engine and also the gun. The only thing you will have to unlock is the tracks, and that's why it's extremely satisfying to play the AV301, because as soon as you're gonna get it, you're nearly gonna play it full already. So that's something good, and that's why the Vickers CR, the tier 9, is quite expensive in terms of XP. But the dream ends now, because when you have the tier 9, oh boy, do you have a big gun to actually research. As you can see, 60,000 experience needed for the gun, followed by 275,000 to unlock the Vickers Light. So yeah, it's gonna hurt some people. It's gonna be a painful grind if you don't manage to use free experience, but in the end, let's face it, the Vickers Light is probably worth it. Don't worry, of course, as soon as the tanks are out, I'm gonna buy all of them and I'm gonna review all of them at the same time. And yeah, pretty similar. You already have the engine that is unlocked if you manage to, for example, unlock the AV422, if I remember correctly, or maybe the AV250B, but that's quite the same engine. And also, if you want to make your grind a little bit easier, you can still unlock the tracks for nearly 30,000 XP. So in total, you will need around 100,000 XP to put the Vickers Light from stock to full, and you need nearly 300 free experience or regular experience to get to the Vickers Light. But still, I think the Vickers is gonna be quite enjoyable, regardless, because the tier 9 gun is already fine. I mean, when we're talking about light tanks, they have really good guns, even if they have one tier, they have guns usually one tier lower than the actual tier they are playing in, but it's not a problem most of the time. I mean, you will probably have to play it with a lot of gold if you only have the first gun, but you can at least penetrate. Think about tanks that don't have the penetration. These are the worst, and the Vickers is not concerned. And finally, good thing for the tier 10, because as you can see, we don't have any modules to research. For example, I'm saying that because if you take a look at the E100, you still have to grind the tier 10 gun after unlocking the tank. Here for the Vickers, it's not the case. As soon as you unlock it, it's full, and it's gonna make your tier 10 experience in this game, and especially in this tank, quite enjoyable. So that's a nice touch, and I want to thank Wargaming for that, not making us grind a shit ton of things or modules at tier 10 is always something nice and rewarding when you finally manage to unlock the tier 10. Let's switch subject now, because we are going to talk about the Super Conqueror, the upcoming tier 10 heavy tank, the British one. And this one is a collectible. It's not a tech tree tank, it's not a premium tank, it's a collector or collectible. You know, the tanks that are blue in your garage, the name of the tank is blue in the garage. That's pretty much what the Super Conqueror is. Probably it will have a really good credit coefficient. It's gonna have the same credit coefficient as most tier 10 premium tanks, but still this tank is not available for free and is gonna come in crates, but we're gonna review the statistics regardless. So overall, if we take a look at the armor profile, the first thing that is quite impressive about the Super Conqueror is probably the frontal turret armor. 290mm, as you can see on this screen, even if it's in Russian. Yeah, I can still translate because it's not hard to translate, let's face it. So, frontal armor, 280mm of effective armor. But you need to add one thing that is not showed in the statistics here. The tank has spaced armor all over the turret. So your effective armor is gonna increase artificially thanks to these big plates of whatever is in front of the tank, but it's gonna make you carry more than 300mm of armor, making it quite impenetrable for pretty much every single medium tanks, most tier 10 tanks, and some tank destroyers that are not using calibrated shell. So yeah, is it good? It's simply amazing. This tank is made to be all down. When you just take a look at the turret, you understand that. Now, second thing I want to talk about, still concerning the spaced armor, this tank is carrying spaced armor on the upper part of the hull as well. Even if it seems like you don't have a lot of armor, because as you can see you have 156mm of effective armor, this doesn't take into consideration the big pile of plates, of spaced plates you have at the front of the tank. So basically when you're going to take this tank, you're going to be impenetrable on both the turret and the upper part of the hull, making it the only tank in the game that has such a strong armor that even with gold shells you shouldn't be able to penetrate through it, especially if you hit with heat shells, because heat shells can go through only one plate, not two. So this tank is simply immune to HE and heat shells. So be aware of that when you're shooting this tank. If you have a PCR, go for it. With gold shells you're gonna penetrate, but without a PCR or regular AP or AP+, don't try it. Here now we're taking a closer look to the armor profile of the Conquerors, of the Super Conqueror, sorry. And yeah, it seems like the only weak spot on the tank is the lower part of the hull. Also, the tank that is aiming at the Super Conqueror here is a T62A running with calibrated shell. So a penetration that is quite good usually with AP, of course, not with heat shells, but with AP you can't go through the tank. It seems like you have some small weak spot at the top of the tank, but I don't think it's gonna be countable as a penetrating shell. I think it's gonna be like only spaced armor, and if you shoot at this area, you're probably gonna miss or bounce. So yeah, overall, when you take a look at the armor profile of the tank like this, you understand how powerful this tank is gonna be in all down positions, and that's what makes it, in my opinion, a little bit broken. But Wargaming tried to counterbalance this armor profile by putting shitty gun handling that we're gonna review right now in order for you to know if you want to get the tank or not. Here is the big cons of the Super Conqueror, the gun handling. 4.7 seconds of aiming time. It's a lot, really it's a lot, guys, especially for a British tank. 0.37, nearly 0.375 of gun dispersion at 100 meter. That's like one of the worst aim time and gun dispersion at tier 10, and the worst out of all British heavies. Of course, to counterbalance a little bit that horrible gun handling, you have some good values of gun depression because you actually have 10 degrees and 15 degrees of gun elevation. But still, that's how Wargaming is trying to make the Super Conqueror balanced. It's extremely strong in terms of armor, so it allows you to go out of your position without fearing being penetrated, especially if we see your hull only. But after, if you can snapshot, let's face it, and that's why I think the idea behind Wargaming is we give you an amazing turret armor, so you have to move out of your position, but as you have an extremely bad gun handling, you have to fully focus on your target to be able to shoot them, and as you are forced to fully focus on your targets have the time to try to aim at your weak spot and actually penetrate them, which is counterbalancing a little bit the armor profile of the tank. I think that's what Wargaming had in mind when they created the Super Conqueror, especially regarding the cons, because on World of Tanks PC, the tank doesn't have such bad gun dispersion. Is it a good thing? I think yes. I don't know if it's gonna make the Super Conqueror completely irrelevant, because if the gun dispersion is really that awful, it's gonna make it useless on the battlefield, except at some very strategic points if you manage to put yourself in all down without anybody being able to penetrate you. Also, another bad thing is probably the mobility. You have bad traverse speed, you also have bad top speed. So yeah, you're gonna have to deal with it, but I don't think it's a problem, and that had to be expected, because the Super Conqueror is basically a Conqueror with the same engine, but you add a shit ton of armor with the spaced armor, plates, etc, etc. So of course it was physically impossible for the Super Conqueror to be as good as the regular Conqueror in terms of mobility, and that had to be expected. That's what Wargaming is doing. So I think to counterbalance everything, they put the bad gun handling, but also a really bad mobility. It's still gonna be average, but let's face it, you're not gonna be as fast as an FV215B, for example, which is already not the best in terms of mobility. So yeah, I don't have anything else to say. If I had more leaks, I would have put it in this video. Before leaving, I'm gonna put the giveaway winners right now. If I forgot to contact you or I can't find you, try to contact me on my Discord at Pantoufleee with 3E at the end, hashtag or dash 0110. But I'm gonna try to contact you regardless. I'm gonna leave you here. Hope you enjoyed these little leaks. Tell me what you think about both the Super Conqueror and the Vickers Light, and I'm gonna see you soon for probably a stream. See ya, guys.